everybody, and welcome back to a new episode of Ask This Old House. I'm on my way to meet a homeowner who is trying to build on a property with wetlands. So wetlands are an area that's either covered with water or water coming from the ground, but it's a very important ecosystem and it's very important to protect. Now, when people hear wetlands, they get nervous. But if you really work with your town and the Conservation Commission, they'll guide you through the process. I mean, I do it for my work all the time, and it's just a permit process you have to go through, and that's a bonus for you and the whole ecosystem. It's a win-win for everyone. Hey, Steve.
Jen, nice to see you.
Nice to see you again. So catch me up on what's happening here.
Well, I was lucky. I found this lot available, and I went to the realtor and said, can I walk the property before I put an offer in?
Very smart.
So when I did, I thought some areas might be wetlands. So at that point, I decided that I need to go to the town and have them tell me what I need to do if there are wetland plants.
Yeah, so people think it's very scary, very intimidating if they have wetlands on their property. Oh, I'm not going to be able to build. But if you work with the Conservation Commission or your town bylaws, it's very doable.
Yeah, I found them to be very cooperative, and they told me the process of what to do to build a house, which is my bottom line.
Right.
And they said the first thing you need to do would be to get the wetlands marked.
Absolutely, and that is why I introduced you to my wetland specialist friend, Tim. What he does is mark everything out for you, right?
Yeah, he did. So he's out back. You want to go talk with him?
Would love to. Hey, Tim.
Hi, Jen. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
Tim?
Steve, how are you?
Good.
All right, so let's just recap here. Under the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, if you're doing any work within the 100-foot buffer zone, you have to get a permit from the town, correct?
That's correct. Regulations vary at the state level, but here in Massachusetts, the first step is going before the town for permission.
Okay, let's talk about why it's important to protect the wetlands.
So wetlands provide a lot of different functions to the ecosystem, including providing habitat for a lot of wildlife species, including many that are listed as threatened and endangered. They act as an area of flood control and can prevent floods from local residences, as well as the filtration of water before it enters the groundwater and other drinking supplies.
Yeah, it's a natural filtration system.
That's correct.
Right. What are the ways that you identify a wetland area?
Definitions of wetlands also vary at the state level, but here in Massachusetts, they're defined as having 50% or more vegetation species that are listed as wetland indicators, as well as other indicators of hydrology, such as wetland soils, root buttressing, standing water, etc.
So like in this area, what type of species do we have here?
Sure, so we have a lot of great wetland indicator species here. This, for example, is spinulose wood fern. We have some poison ivy on the ground that I won't touch.
Okay.
Some New York fern here is another wetland species. Some jewelweed and sensitive fern down here as well.
Okay, I see that. And it feels like I'm walking through an intermittent stream.
Yep, good observation. So this is an intermittent stream. They often flow through or adjacent to wetlands, but being intermittent means it dries up for certain points of the year, such as right now.
Okay.
So this is a high bush blueberry as well, another good wetland indicator species, very common in Massachusetts.
Yeah, I love them. So we talked about the indicator plants. What about the soils? How do you take your sample?
So soils can be determined with a simple test using a hand auger like this. Would you like to see?
I would love to see.
Great, let's take a look.
All right.
So we'll do the soil test here.
Okay.
This seems like a good spot.
Okay.
So I just take my hand auger, stick it in the ground and give it a few twists.
All right.
So at this first pull, we're seeing some pretty dark soils that seem to be indicative of hydrology.
Okay.
But we need to see what's below it in the next horizon. And upland soils are generally more orange and brown due to the presence of iron. Yeah, so here we go. You can see the clear difference between the darker topsoil and the gray. This one's pretty sandy.
So we look at soil and plants. That determines the wetlands.
Those are the two indicators.
Okay. Okay, so now that we've determined there are wetlands here, what are the next steps to get you to be approved?
Sure. So because we found wetland indicator vegetation species as well as the presence of hydric soils, we have determined there are wetlands on the property. The next step is to perform what we call a wetland delineation, where a wetlands expert like myself will go out and physically hang flags in the field to mark out the exact locations and boundaries of the wetland. Those will then be shot in by a surveyor and shown on a site plan, and the surveyor will work with the engineer to design a proposed project, as they've done for Steve. So we have the plans in front of us for the project that was recently approved by the Conservation Commission. So here we have the wetland line shown with these notations going around the property. So this is the wetland system that we were standing in earlier when we were talking about soils and vegetation. Here's the intermittent stream that's right behind us now that we were in earlier. So this marks off wetlands in this area and then kind of in the middle here with uplands on this side and this side of the wetland line. So in order to access these uplands back here to construct the house, so we will need to impact some wetlands in order to do that. Under the Mass Wetlands Protection Act, you are allowed to fill wetlands so long as you create a replication area of greater than or equal to size of that. So we impacted about 770 square feet of wetlands here in order to get the driveway through. Those are going to be replicated over in this wetland replication area.
And with all the indicator species that we saw earlier.
Yep, so everything that goes into the wetland replication area should be a wetland indicator species so that the area will survive in the future as a wetland resource area.
Great.
I went and had the wetland plants delivered. If you want to get your hands dirty, let's go plant them.
Yep.
Let's get started.
Okay.
So we made sure that the surrounding elevation of the wetlands was matched by the replication area.
Okay. How do you amend your soil for the replication area?
We need to make sure that there's at least 6 inches of nutrient-rich organic topsoils so that the wetland plants that we'll be putting in will thrive and it'll have similar conditions to the surrounding wetlands.
Okay.
Finally, once the plants are all on the ground, we'll spread this seed mix, which is a New England variety of native wetland indicator species that will spread across the area.
All right, so the replication area is complete, and I actually think it looks really good. And you just follow the guidelines, and if you didn't know what to do, you hire a wetland specialist like Tim to help you talk to the Conservation Commission and get all the right information.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this process, but what happens from here? What's the next step?
So now I'll let the Conservation Commission know that Steve's all set and has constructed the area, and we'll be back out twice a year for the next 2 years just to ensure that the area thrives and succeeds and all the plants survive. And then you should be all set.
All right, so everything will be established.
That's right.
All right, well, guess what? I'll see you guys in 2 years.
Okay.
I'll see you later.
Thanks for watching. This Old House has got a video for just about every home improvement project, so be sure to check out the others. And if you like what you see, click on the subscribe button to make sure that you get our newest videos right in your feed.